Yes. Welcome to 14.0 release kickoff. I'm super excited. This is going to be one of the biggest and the most impactful major releases ever in GitLab's history for the complete DevOps platform. 14.0 release is special. I was collecting some really odd facts and found some really interesting ones. A sonnet is a 14-line poem. I did not know that in golf, a player can have no more than 14 clubs in a bag, but the most interesting for me, as I like to follow math along, is a cuboid tetrahedron has 14 sides and it has 6 squares and 8 equilateral triangles. Pretty fascinating when you open it up. That's enough about 14 as a number, but here's another interesting thing. Under the British law, when you reach age of 14, you can go into a pub, but you cannot buy or drink alcohol. People in EMEA can correct me if this is still true or not. But my favorite, you can contribute to GitLab in 14.0 and help push the state of the art of making software to new heights. Our themes for this year are resonating with our customers and prospects. And so we're going to continue down these themes, which are application security testing leadership, which we believe is critical for DevOps after SCM and CI. And we want to continue to lead in the market here. Adoption through usability. We believe the key to unlocking the power of single application is to have customers experience the value of all of the stages together. And this is the primary path to reduce the tool sprawl that many of you are facing today. And finally, SaaS first. SaaS first does not mean SaaS only. We are committed to both self-managed as well as SaaS customers. This year, we are placing emphasis on strengthening our SaaS offering to ensure feature parity with our market-leading self-managed offering. In other news, a lot is happening this year, which you will see coming into 14.0. First, engineering allocations. It's a method for us to create some space for our engineering teams for mid to long-term efficiency, performance, security, availability, and scalability improvements. So you're going to see a lot of them coming through in 14.0. And second, single engineer groups, a great method to kickstart a new market area inside GitLab. And we have lots of openings here. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to our engineering team. There are openings for model ops, APM, real-time collaboration, newer ways to do IDE development, DevOps for mobile apps, Jamstack, and a lot more. So with that said, I want to turn to the regular proceedings. We're going to start off with Dylan, who will take us through the enablement section, followed by David, who will walk us through Dev and Sec, and Kenny, who will walk us through Ops. As a reminder, we plan ambitiously. Everything we talk about are in the /release /direction/kickoff page, where you can follow along with issues. You can watch videos about what we are building. So with that, take it away, Dylan.
Thanks, Anoop. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can we see that okay? Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Reno, PM for Distribution, and welcome to the Enablement Section Kickoff. Today, I will go over the section highlights across these main categories: adoption through usability, new markets, and a SaaS-first mindset. So moving right along into our first section here. Adoption through usability. Within adoption through usability, we have a number of highlights across global search and geo. First up, we'll be working on sort of holistically improving the sorting and search experience for project and group dropdowns in the global search menu. So some nice additions here, and within that, encompassed in that, is the ability to search across multiple projects and repositories. As you can see here, in the dropdowns, you have the ability to sort of select and deselect different projects in context in the search menu. And moving to the next improvement, we have the ability to basically include the scope of the search in the search bar for global search when we are defaulting to a specific project or group. So when users are searching in the top bar, you can deselect or select scoping items right there in context. So this is the basically previous experience, and this is what the new experience will look like. So you can see you can choose different context items in the global search bar right there. So again, moving right along to our next item in adoption through usability, we have the new admin site for our geo site. And this is significantly improves the experience for sysadmins monitoring the health and replication status of their geo sites in the web UI. So we've added more useful indicators such as sync verification summaries for data types and verification status bars for individual data types and components. And in general, we've improved how this page is organized. So reducing the amount of clicks needed to surface important information. So really cool stuff there. Now moving on to new markets for enablement, we are continuing our thread in distribution for the GA release of the operator. So this is our main focus on the distribution team. And this is the epic kind of encompassing all that work. And you can see the number of must-haves we have for the GA. Now that the MVP has been released, we've begun beta testing, and we have used that data from the beta to clarify issues and gather new information. In 14.0, we'll be working on items for a solid experience using operator to install GitLab on OpenShift or vanilla Kubernetes and automate day two operations. GA will not be in this milestone, but is the main focus as we continue moving towards GA. Next up is our SaaS first mindset. And the first item here is Geo. So within Geo, we have basically GA support for Postgres SQL on Geo secondary sites using Patroni. So with Postgres SQL required in 14.0, Patroni replaces the rep manager as our solution for Postgres SQL high availability. One benefit of this is that Geo secondary sites will support a Postgres SQL high availability cluster with Patroni. This is not previously possible with Rep Manager v3. So customers can now fail over to a secondary site that already mirrors the high availability configuration on their primary site, thereby reducing recovery time and producing a more mature disaster recovery experience. So moving on to the next item we have in memory, we are working to shift database load from primary to replicas by enabling Sidekick to use read-only database replicas capabilities and to allow build hooks worker to utilize these new capabilities. The broader goal is to allow Sidekick to use read replicas so that only read-only jobs don't put pressure on the primary Postgres instance for our users. The next item here is addressing primary key overflow risk with an integer PK. So by using the newly introduced framework for batch background migrations, they've been able to run successful migrations over multiple CI tables and update more than 2.5 billion records in the past 3 weeks. We are really satisfied with the progress of the migrations as they are progressing at a steady pace and according to our best case scenario expectations. We are excited with the prospect of using this framework in the future for all database migrations. We've also released a major update that enables migration auto-tuning, which allows the migrations to automatically pick the optimal number of records to update every 2 minutes and respond to dynamically changing conditions in a production environment without any requirement for a monitoring by a database expert or an administrator. This is important on multiple levels. It allows the migrations to quickly respond in case of a production incident and protect the database from additional load. And it permits the migrations to increase the number of records that they're processing during low traffic times, for example, on a weekend. It will help us ship the migrations to self-hosted instances with various hardware specs without setting up their parameters using the lowest denominator or requiring additional attention by the instance administrators. And last but not least, in database, we are working on automated database testing using production clones. We have successfully completed the initial automated database migration testing MVC, and we plan to move forward with increasing the maturity of the setup and expanding coverage to data migrations. The automated testing of migrations against production clones has seen a wide adoption and has proved to be an invaluable tool for database maintainers, and helps us test complex migrations, spot problems early on, and gain confidence with respect to the behavior of hard to predict operations. And with that, that is our highlights for enablement. And thanks, and don't forget to check out our enablement videos.
Hey, Dylan, thank you for the enable updates. Let's hop into the dev and sec section updates as well. First, starting off with dev. With 14.0, we'll be making the official cutover to the new name for the default branch, which will be main. We rolled this out in 13.12 to GitLab.com, and that has been successful there. We are now looking to do this for self-managed instances as well. To let you all know, it does not actually change existing projects. If you want to change the name of the default in there, there's some guidance on our documentation on how to do that. The source code team is also working on a multi-milestone project focused on launching GitLab SSD or SSHD. This will replace the existing open SSH daemon we use today for GitLab.com, and will be available for you to use as well. The source code team is focused primarily on usability as well as scalability. And we, in our early estimates, this will allow for higher scalability for you using GitLab. For the code review team, they're focused on two areas. Both are focused on usability. The first is introducing merge request reviews in VS Code. So if you're not familiar, we do have an extension for the VS Code editor where you can work on your GitLab projects in VS Code. This is going to extend that to give you the full merge request experience as part of that extension for VS Code. The team is also working on the OKR for improving large MR experience. So this kicked off with the last milestone and is going to carry out through the end of this quarter for us. Their focus is on improving large amount MRs loading 40% faster, as well as using substantially less memory in the process. For the editor team, there's a lot of really exciting components related to usability. They're all items we've been talking about that they've been working on for the last several milestones. First is improving the global navigation or the top navigation you see within the UI. What you'll be seeing is we'll be collapsing the top navigation down to a single option for menu. And from there, upon expanding it, you'll see a better layout of the options that are in that top level navigation. That includes both projects as well as groups. And of course, the other things are under the more menu. Also with 14.0, rolling out the updated left bar or left navigation that you can see here. Today, when you're looking at it, you can have things such as rolling over requirements has a single option of list. Those are things that we'll be addressing, as well as taking user feedback in as to how the menu should be laid out. On the issue that's linked directly off the Epic, you can see the current proposed layout. And here's kind of a screenshot of what that would look like from our UX design team as well. Both those very excited about, very much wanting to make sure GitLab is approachable and usable, and improving our navigation is a great step along that way. Finally, for the editor team, they're rolling out the new content editor for the wiki. What this will allow you to do is actually have more of a WYSIWYG type editor, be able to go in and with simple keystrokes, be able to set things such as bolded lists, headers, and so forth. The best way for you to see how awesome this is to check out the kickoff video for the editor team. Eric does a really good job doing a demo of showing the old versus the new, and it's a great usability improvement. From the plan stage, we'll be rolling out the final component of the Epic Boards MVC. This is actually MVC3. It'll be focused on improving usability and providing parity in this release. It'll also be the first time it's not behind a feature flag. So you'll be able to see that as a default workflow. To kind of give you a sense of what it looks like, here is actually a GitLab project with the feature flag currently enabled. And you can see similar components. This is actually the product planning board where they have their workflow plans as well as their development plans, all laid out nice and easy on the board. You can also search and select from the dropdown as well. And then finally, from plan for project planning, they're focused on infrastructure and scalability issues. This first one actually relates back to that code review, merge request improvement. They're focused on improving the discussions control of the product. This improvements will not only benefit issues and epics with a large amount of comments on them, but will also improve the nested comments that you see on side of a merge request. And then finally, they're also focused on lowering our error budgets. So focusing on making sure things are responsive as you access them. And they have a large list of items you're going to be working on improving endpoints as part of 14.0. And then finally, for manage, most of the manage stage is focused on infrastructure scalability. In the case of compliance, they're working on an additional item that is both SaaS first and adoption. They are improving the audit event process that's within the product today, focused on rolling out a new webhook system. So that Spike is just wrapping up, and then they'll be moving into migrating the existing components over to this new webhook. We're doing this for a couple of reasons. The first, it's going to allow us to rapidly add additional audit events into the product. A lot of customers request things such as, I would like to see my security events in the audit event and not the security view. All those things would be able to be migrated over and easily added to the audit events. It's also going to allow for customization as well, where you'll be able to also create your own custom audit events you would want to see within the audit viewer. And as I mentioned, the scalability and usability focus of the rest of Manage. Optimize is doing a lot of work on the back end to be able to set up some really cool things that are be coming out in future milestones. So please stay tuned for that. Over to the SEC section, starting with secure. The static analysis team is focusing on the AST leadership component, as well as adoption through usability. The first item is our vulnerability fingerprinting that we've actually renamed now to vulnerability tracking. This is going to allow us to reduce false positives for you. A good example of this is SaaS scanners will commonly reflag the same vulnerability as new if it's been shifted at all in the source code. We do a really good job handling that today. However, this is going to make that a lot more effective. The final thing to highlight with that is long-term, it's going to allow you to do group level dismissals of vulnerabilities. So if there's a vulnerability type you see in one project and you say, for our entire group, we don't want to see this vulnerability again, it can dismiss it across all the projects. The team is also kicking off work on our generic AST engine. AST stands for Abstract Syntax Tree. It gives us the ability to watch control flow and data flow within the application. This is going to primarily reduce a lot of false positives. To give you an example of what this looks like, here you can see there's a vulnerability that was found. It was automatically dismissed, and it was given a reason for the dismissal. If you scroll down on that overlay in the UI, you'll see the actual data flow that led to that decision. So the SAST engine scanner found that there's an exploitable component that's not being sanitized, which means that someone could take advantage of it. However, following the data flow of that command, we can see it comes up here and calls user.list. If we go up to user.list, we see that it's actually executing a printout of static text. And so because of that, it's actually not an exploitable vulnerability, and that would actually get automatically dismissed for you. The work related to this starts in 14.0, and you'll see it begin to roll out later this year. And then the rest of Secure, of course, is working on infra and scalability concerns. I did want to highlight one thing for you. The dynamic analysis team is making the move in 14.0 to move off of ZAP for DAST API over to Peach API security, which was a part of an acquisition last year. This is very exciting. Not only is the API security solution more robust, it's also going to provide better coverage and reduce false positives. So a very exciting step forward to improving our API support inside of DAST. And then finally, both composition analysis and threat insights are working on scalability items. They say hi to everyone, and that they'll be giving you more exciting things in the future here. To finish up with the protect stage, the first thing we want to make sure you realize is 14.0 is the official removal of the GitLab WAF. If you are still using that and you want to continue to use it, there are some documentation that's available on how to continue to use that. However, it will no longer be an official part of the UI, and you will not be able to manage it from there. 14.0 is also a big milestone for Protect. We're switching over to Trivy as our default scanner. This is very exciting. It's going to give us a lot of opportunity to help improve the market and the open source community, as well as work closely with the community to improve security overall. And that leads very well into our next update. With the switch to Trivy, in the future, we'll be able to begin to scan running containers in production, a big step forward for container security, and that'll be leveraging Starboard as well as working with Aqua Security on implementing that into the product. And the last thing, which I am probably the most excited about that I've been talking to you today, is our move to reduce the time until we release vulnerability data into the open source community. Back at the beginning of the year, I talked about how we were going to begin to create a community advisory database so open source users and the open source community can benefit from it. We've decided with 14.0 to change that from a 6-month delay to a 1-month delay. So everyone's gonna be able to get the advantage of our vulnerability research team, as well as the ability to integrate this into more scanners. And the first example of that is Trivy. Trivy will be modified to be able to support the community database. And of course, if you're a GitLab customer, leverage the ultimate version of that database as well. So that's all the cool stuff that's happening within DevInSec. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my brother from another mother, Kenny Johnston.
Thanks, David. Yeah, my name is Kenny Johnston. I am the Director of Product Management covering the ops section. Let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. As a reminder, the ops section is comprised of 5 stages: verify, package, release, configure, monitor, not just stages. I was doing the math. It has enough categories to cover almost 3 of Anoop's octodecahedrons that he mentioned earlier, 14-sided cubes. I'm going to go over what we're working on in 14.0. Like many of my colleagues, most of the groups are also working to implement deprecations that we previously announced. You can find those lists of those deprecations in our previous release posts, so I'll encourage you to look there. First up, I want to talk about a feature that we're adding in the verify CI stage that really is about enabling some of the work that David and the secure group are doing to allow for auto remediation of fixes. So when you use GitLab CI, it's a really powerful automation tool. You can provide a token to the CI job itself in order for it to perform actions on GitLab, like fetching packages or making updates to code. We have been working to make sure that when you use a bot to utilize that token, that you can do that securely. And so in 14.0, we'll be adding the ability for you to limit the access that that CI job token can have on a project by project basis. It's really useful for users who might want to have a more restrictive use of those tokens while still enabling users to use it for things like parent-child pipelines. Also in Verify, in our runner group, we're focusing our support on adding support for Windows. So we'll be adding the ability to use Windows build pods in a Kubernetes executor. This allows you to have a kind of hybrid environment in your Kubernetes cluster that can have both Linux and Windows pods at the same time. We're also going to be adding additional support. This is our Windows version support policy for the Docker executor. We're going to be adding support for a newer version of Windows Server Core 20H2. In our package stage, we're going to be working on the ability to add a package registry endpoint for Python at the group level. This was identified to us by a specific user who was highlighting that when you have multiple projects that are all publishing Python packages, it can be difficult to manage the dependencies between those because you have to register each individual project's endpoints with the other projects. So by doing this, we can have a centralized package registry for all your Python modules at the group level. In our configure stage, if you've been following along in Kickoff and our release notes, we've been working on a Kubernetes agent. One of the really powerful things that the Kubernetes agent can do when you have it installed in your cluster is tunnel CI requests. So today, if you were to want to do a job that was going to interact with your Kubernetes cluster, you have to give that job specific credentials to access the cluster. Since you've already provided access to the agent for that cluster, the tunneling allows you to more readily in your CI definition pipe the specific scripts that you're wanting to execute on the cluster directly to that cluster, really enabling you to have a more powerful and more secure interaction between your CI and CD tooling and your production environments. In the same vein around that cluster, we're also going to be adding a new UI for registering your agents, your Kubernetes agents. So today there's a couple of API calls that you have to make in order to access a token to utilize the agent, and we're going to be adding a new UI for that walks you through the process for not just creating the necessary componentry in your repository to configure the agent, but also obtain the registration token and then install that agent directly into your cluster. In our monitor stage, we've been working on incident management, on-call schedule management, and escalation policies. One of the things that we've found from users who were creating incidents was that they wanted the ability to switch back and forth between whether an object that they created in GitLab was an incident or an issue. And so this was a highly requested feature that will increase the usability of our incident management functions by giving users the ability to quickly adjust the type of an object between an incident and an issue. So with that, I will hand it back to Anoop to bring us home.
Thanks, Kenny. And because this is 14.0, I found 14 items that I really would like to cover and re-emphasize. Love the focus on usability, AST leadership and SaaS, reducing false positives from scan, vulnerability scans against running containers, super exciting. Reducing time to release vulnerability will be amazingly appreciated by the community. Merge request reviews in VS Code. We know devs want to be where they are, so bringing the merge review request into VS Code is excellent. I'm a big fan of Markdown personally, but I know we will all love the WYSIWYG editor in the group, in the wikis. Automated database testing using clones is going to be great for stability and cycle time. Large MR performance improvements is in high demand, so thank you for the focus on it. I can't wait for the Waffle top nav and the Epic boards. Error budgets are instrumental for us to drive our SaaS first focus. It's something that everybody over time is going to adopt in the industry. Love the search improvements and the GeoAdmin UI, making things easier for admins as well as developers. Windows build pods in Kubernetes, a great extension to bring all the different operating systems into the same umbrella. Package registry endpoint for all your Python modules at group level. Number 13, love the progress on Kubernetes agent. It's a great connector from CI to CD. And 14, changing the type on issues is going to be great, not just for incident management, but overall. So excellent progress. Love 14.0 release. And I think 14.x is going to be a major improvement forward for GitLab and its users. Thank you all, and we'll see you next month.